Look at you, folded into yourself, spine curved around a glowing rectangle, like a supplicant at a plastic altar. Thumb twitching, eyes glazed, posture perfected by years of obedience training. You tell yourself you are relaxing, that this is leisure, that nothing is being demanded. That is a lie the feed whispers, so you stop noticing the extraction. You are not choosing anything, you are being processed. This is not chaos, this is design. Slop does not happen accidentally, the way bad haircuts or awkward conversations happen. Slop is built, measured, tuned, and shipped. It has meetings, it has roadmaps. It has executives who say user delight, while meaning time spent immobilized. The architecture matters because it explains why everything feels the same now, why surprise feels dangerous, why silence feels illegal. 2025 is not the year content got worse. It is the year the system stopped pretending to care whether it was good. The feed used to feel like a street, loud, messy, full of weird shops and shouting strangers. Now it feels like an airport terminal that never closes. Endless screens, endless announcements, nothing memorable, nowhere to stay. Everything is temporary, including you. The goal is not joy, insight, or even satisfaction. The goal is compliance. Stay seated. Keep watching. Do not ask why this exists. And here is the accusation that hurts. This works because it fits your body. It fits your boredom, your anxiety, your fear of being alone with your thoughts. Slop thrives because it asks nothing and promises everything. No effort, no risk, no meaning, just motion. You did not break the internet, but you did move in, unpack, and agree to the terms without reading them. That silent consent is the cornerstone slab supporting every corridor of this rotten structure here. Slop needs a definition sharper than bad because bad still implies failure. Slop is success by the wrong metric. It is content that perfectly satisfies the system that produced it while actively failing the human forced to consume it. Amateur garbage from earlier eras still carried fingerprints. Someone cared badly. Someone tried and missed. Slop does not miss. It lands exactly where it is designed to land and nowhere else. Brain rot is the predictable outcome. Not a joke, not slang, not exaggeration, a cognitive state where stimulation replaces thought and repetition replaces memory. You watch 5 videos and retain none because retention is not the point. The point is continuity, flow without friction. Slop is built to slide past the part of your mind that asks questions and lodge itself in the reflexes. It feels smooth because it is empty. Look at the aesthetics, the same cadences, the same pauses, the same emotional arcs flattened into templates, voices that sound calm but never warm, excited but never specific. Images that look finished until you stare too long and notice nothing lines up. This sameness is not coincidence, it is convergence. Optimization does not create variety. It sands things down until they fit the mold that offends the fewest people and excites no one. The old internet was full of trash, but it was human trash. Arguments, obsessions, mistakes, sincerity. Slop has no obsessions. It has no inner life. It is not embarrassing, because embarrassment requires self-awareness. Slop does not risk anything, so it cannot fail meaningfully. That is why it feels dead on arrival, even when it is new, and still you watch. Because Slop is not asking you to like it, it is asking you to remain. Brain rot is not hatred. It is numbness. The system does not want your opinion. It wants your continued presence, breathing quietly, eyes open, attention gently dissolved into paste. Now bring in the management class, because Slop always has architects. These are not creators gone wrong. These are people for whom creation is an inconvenience between meetings. They do not wake up with ideas. They wake up with dashboards. Their native language is not curiosity, but alignment. They speak in verbs like optimize, leverage, scale, words that remove fingerprints from decisions. Nobody ever ruins culture on purpose. They just never notice when it dies. They sit in climate-controlled rooms and talk about audiences like weather patterns, unpredictable, irritating to be modeled and managed. They do not ask what people feel. They ask how long people stay. Art becomes a liability because it resists standardization. Humans become liabilities because they have opinions and limits. The perfect worker never sleeps, never complains, never asks why the work exists. Slop fits neatly into this worldview. Listen to how they talk. Content is inventory. Attention is a resource. Creativity is a pipeline. When something fails, it is not mourned. It is deprecated. This language is not neutral. It is a solvent. It dissolves responsibility. If nobody makes anything, then nobody is accountable for what exists. The system did it. The data suggested it. The market decided. Convenient ghosts. They are not stupid. That is the most dangerous part. They are extremely intelligent inside a narrow tunnel. They can optimize a process to death without ever asking whether the process deserves to live. Show them something beautiful. and they will ask how to reproduce it faster. Show them something meaningful, and they will ask how to automate it. They do not hate you. You are simply not relevant as a person. Slop is what happens when decision makers never have to sit with the consequences of their decisions. They do not watch the feed. They monitor it. They do not feel boredom. They measure churn. Culture collapses quietly under people who are very good at their jobs and terrible at being human. That is how rot becomes policy. That is how slop gets approved. Artificial intelligence did not start this fire. It arrived to a room already soaked in gasoline and offered a match with a reassuring smile. Management did not adopt AI because it was creative. They adopted it because it was obedient. AI does not argue. It does not ask for credit. It does not slow down when something feels wrong. It produces on command and absorbs blame without complaint. For a certain kind of executive, this is indistinguishable from magic. They told you it was about empowerment, that anyone could be a creator now. What they meant was anyone could be replaced. The rhetoric is always generous when the reality is brutal. Tools became substitutions. Assistants became erasure. Entire professions were reframed as inefficiencies overnight, not because they failed, but because a cheaper approximation became available. Quality was redefined downward to meet the output. AI slop is not offensive because it is imperfect. It is offensive because it pretends to be enough. It mimics structure without understanding purpose. It produces sentences without stakes, images without intention, stories without consequence. And because it is statistically competent, it passes initial inspection. It clears the bar management lowered specifically so it would clear it. When it goes wrong, nobody is responsible. The model hallucinated, the prompt was unclear, iteration will fix it. This endless deferral is the point. AI creates plausible deniability at scale. You cannot argue with a system that has no inner life. You can only accept its output or disengage, and disengagement is treated as a user failure. The cruelty here is subtle. Human creators are told to compete with machines that do not tire, do not doubt, do not need to be paid. Then they are blamed for losing. AI did not kill creativity. It made visible how little the system valued it to begin with. Slop is simply the truth, with better processing power and no conscience attached. YouTube in 2025 is the clearest crime scene. The body is everywhere, and nobody has time to investigate because the next video is already playing. 20% AI slop is the conservative number. It feels higher because it clusters. Once the algorithm decides you will tolerate it, the floodgates open. The feed stops feeling curated and starts feeling automated, like a warehouse conveyor belt that forgot it was supposed to end. The repetition is the tell. Identical titles with shuffled nouns. Identical voices narrating nothing with professional calm. Gameplay footage stretched like taffy to fill time. Stories without beginnings or endings, just middles stacked on middles. You do not remember what you watched an hour ago, only that you were watching. This is not discovery. It is occupancy. The platform does not care whether the content is watched with interest or resignation. An open tab is an open tab. Autoplay is the perfect accomplice. Choice becomes a technicality. The system frames this as abundance, as if more always means better. In reality, it feels like walking into a library where every book is the same paragraph printed with different covers. Creators feel it too. Human work is buried under volume. Thoughtful videos fight for oxygen against endless generative noise. The incentive shifts. Why labor over something difficult when the algorithm rewards frequency and familiarity? Slop crowds out effort, not by being better but by being louder. This is how platforms hollow themselves out. They optimize for activity and slowly erase meaning. YouTube did not break overnight. It suffocated under its own success metrics. When everything is content, nothing is worth finishing. When everything is optimized, nothing feels alive. The feed keeps moving and you stay still, quietly absorbing the proof that scale without intention always collapses into monotony eventually. At some point the jokes run out, because laughter does not explain why this keeps happening. Mockery identifies the problem, but it does not dismantle the logic holding it together. To understand slop, you have to understand belief. The system believes in efficiency the way earlier cultures believed in gods. It is assumed. It is unquestioned. It is treated as moral. Efficiency sounds virtuous because it promises less waste, less time, less cost, less friction. What it never promises is meaning. Efficiency measures how quickly something is produced, not why it exists or how it is received. When applied to culture, efficiency becomes a blunt instrument. It rewards output over outcome. It celebrates speed while ignoring impact. The industry measures success where it is easiest to count. Uploads, views, retention. These numbers are clean and comforting. Experience is messy. Feeling cannot be graphed cleanly, so it is ignored. Slop thrives because it performs well on dashboards even as it poisons the well it draws from. This belief system treats attention as infinite and people as interchangeable. It assumes that if someone leaves, another will arrive. That boredom is a personal failure rather than a systemic one. The logic is internally consistent and externally disastrous. It cannot perceive harm that does not show up immediately in metrics. Slop is not a glitch, it is the expected outcome of optimizing culture like logistics. Once you accept that, the collapse stops being mysterious. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as designed. The question becomes whether anyone involved cares enough to redesign it, or whether efficiency will continue to be worshipped until there is nothing left to efficiently distribute except emptiness on repeat. The efficiency fallacy rests on a simple assumption: cheaper and faster automatically equals better. This assumption survives because it works beautifully in manufacturing and catastrophically in art. A factory benefits from uniformity. Culture dies from it. When the same logic is applied to both, slop is inevitable. Reducing cost at the production end often increases cost at the human end. Content that is cheap to make demands more filtering, more scrolling, more cognitive energy to escape. The system externalizes that burden onto you and calls itself successful. You spend more time searching for something worthwhile, and that wasted time is counted as engagement. Speed creates another illusion. Rapid iteration is framed as responsiveness, but in practice it prevents reflection. There is no pause to ask whether something should exist before it does. Everything ships, everything competes, everything dissolves. Nothing settles long enough to matter. Human creators work slowly because thought takes time. Intention takes time. Revision takes time. These are not inefficiencies, they are the process. When speed becomes the priority, the process is treated as an obstacle. The result may resemble content, but it lacks depth because depth requires resistance. The fallacy persists because the damage is delayed. You do not notice the loss immediately. You notice it later, when everything feels thinner, flatter, harder to care about. By then the system points at the numbers and declares victory. Efficiency without purpose does not create value. It strips it away. Slop is the residue left behind when production outruns meaning. The industry mistook motion for progress and is now confused that everyone feels tired instead of fulfilled. The math works. The outcome does not. Then comes the infinite content paradox, the belief that more will solve what more created. If content is endless, then boredom should disappear. Instead, it metastasizes. Abundance does not satisfy curiosity, it exhausts it. When everything is available, nothing feels chosen. Human memory relies on boundaries. Stories stick because they end. Experiences matter because they are finite. Infinite feeds erase those edges. You cannot remember what had no shape. You cannot care about what never stops. Brain rot is the mind adapting to an environment with no conclusions. The paradox is cruel. As content increases, individual pieces lose value. Attention fragments, emotional investment shrinks. The system responds by increasing output further, flooding the space to compensate for dwindling impact. This accelerates the collapse. Meaning is diluted until it disappears. AI makes this worse by removing natural limits. Human creators burn out. Machines do not. The result is a fire hose pointed at a teacup. No one can drink from it. Everyone is expected to. The industry confuses availability with richness. A library of infinite pamphlets is not a library, it is clutter. Infinite content does not create culture. It erases it by making everything interchangeable. When nothing is scarce, nothing is precious. When nothing is precious, nothing is protected. The paradox resolves itself in numbness. People stop seeking, they stop expecting, they scroll because scrolling is what remains. This is not entertainment. It is sedation delivered at scale, mistaken for progress because the servers stay busy and the silence never arrives to question it. The long-term consequences are already visible if you stop pretending not to see them. Trust erodes first. Audiences learn that investment is pointless because nothing will reward it. Brands become noise generators instead of identities. Loyalty fades into habit, then into indifference. Slop economies eat themselves. They train users to disengage emotionally, then panic when engagement becomes shallow. The response is always more content, never better content. Growth continues on paper while culture withers underneath. It looks like success until it suddenly does not. Human creators leave or adapt downward. The middle collapses. Only the loudest slop and the rarest passion projects remain. Everything else is squeezed out by volume and indifference. This is not evolution. It is attrition. Management celebrates quarterly gains while quietly burning the future. Compound value requires care. Care requires people. People require time and respect. Slop requires none of these. It is cheaper, faster, and terminal. The tragedy is not that the system failed. It succeeded at the wrong thing. It optimized for production and forgot reception. It measured clicks and ignored feeling. It assumed people would tolerate emptiness forever. They will not revolt. They will drift away. They will disengage quietly, taking their curiosity with them. What remains will be an efficient machine producing content for an audience that no longer cares. That is the end state. Not collapse, but irrelevance. A perfectly optimized void, humming softly, generating slop for nobody who remembers why they ever stayed. This is where the responsibility returns to you, uncomfortable and unavoidable. Not as a consumer, but as a participant. Attention is not passive. It is a choice repeated until it becomes a habit. Slop survives because it is tolerated. It spreads because it is rewarded with time. Resisting this is not nostalgia. It is preservation. It means choosing work that shows signs of intention, even when it asks more of you. It means letting boredom exist long enough for curiosity to wake up again. It means closing the feed when it starts to feel like chewing air. Support human work. Seek friction. Favor things that risk failure over things that guarantee smoothness. Demand authorship in a world trying to erase it. This is not about taste. It is about agency. The management class is betting you will not notice the difference, or that you will notice and shrug. Prove them wrong by caring deliberately, by disengaging selectively, by refusing to confuse availability with value. Slop is not inevitable. It is chosen, reinforced, and maintained. It can be starved. Algorithms follow behavior. When behavior changes, so does the output. This is not a fight for better videos. It is a fight for human intentionality in systems designed to dissolve it. Pay attention like it matters, because it does. Stop clicking the slop. Choose the soul. That choice, repeated enough times, is the only architecture that ever built anything worth remembering.